sent, is that you're not safe anywhere if you criticize us. And the message that President Trump is sending is that there's no consequences. We have a president of the United States who says journalists are the enemy of the state. So values like freedom of speech and dissent suddenly are very endangered around the world. And that's a trend line that I think is getting much worse.
All right, Juan, let's pick up on what Ben Rhodes just said. I think it's pretty irresponsible to link the Washington Post columnist's death with President Trump's war on the media. I mean, that's just rhetoric. There's journalists that have been dying in Mexico for decades before Donald Trump started saying something like this. Do you really think he's responsible for the Washington Post blogger's demise?
No. But I do.
Then why would he say that?
Oh, for a very substantive reason, Jesse, which is that you have press under fire in so many areas of the world. You cited Mexico. I mean, I've been to Mexico as a guest of the State Department to talk about threats against journalists. You see this in Turkey. You see this throughout much of the world. We know about Vladimir Putin's attitudes. But when the President of the United States, who should be standing up for democratic values, for press freedoms, freedom of dissent, says that the press in his country is the enemy of the people, perpetrating fake news, I think it does empower the autocrats elsewhere to say, well, it's just like the United States. You know, we're just going after them just the way the President of the United States goes after his critics. It's not healthy.
I don't know if that's the way to link it. I don't think you can draw that kind of connection. There's no evidence that it's empowered anybody in the other parts of the world. And the president loves the press, Morgan. I mean, he courts them like fanatically. He just did an interview with Bloomberg, AP, Fox News, and 60 Minutes within a week. And FBN, and he's feeding them all the time. He loves the press deep down.
Right, and in fact, when the president first came out, when the story first came out about Khashoggi, one of the first things the president said was he mentioned how it really was upsetting that he was a journalist and that this happened to him. I think what you're seeing going on here in this specific case of the Saudis is that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. The country team in these embassies and these consulates, they're working together. You know, we have legal attaches and all of these consulates and all of these embassies working with other three-letter agencies that are getting to the bottom of this. And I think the president is trying to give space to our governments and to the Turkish and Saudi governments to figure out what's actually going on and to hold people accountable.
I mean, we just heard all the sound, Dana, at the top. It's all spin. You know, it's spin on the Middle East. It's spin on Elizabeth Warren. It's irresponsible spin from Mika Brzezinski. Do the Democrats have actually any plans for the American people?
I think one of the things that is hurting them right now at 20 days, 19 days till the midterms is that President Trump is consuming all the oxygen in the media. So you're saying basically what he's decided is he's going to flood the zone and nobody else can get on television unless they're talking about him and talking about him in some way that would be derogatory, because that would actually get them headlines. So I think that is what's happening. You know, he has said in one of those interviews he doesn't necessarily think the midterms are a referendum on him. He has said otherwise in the past. He said he welcomes it being about him, but his actions show differently. He knows if he's out there and he's driving news media and his voters get engaged, that makes red state Democrats very nervous, because if it doesn't have to be a majority of the Trump voters come out in those red states, then the Senate Democrats that are up for re-election will lose.
So, Dana, your point is that when he says horseface, he's exciting his base?
No.
Oh.
No, I didn't say that. I think he's doing all sorts of media. Like he said so many things on so many different topics. He said that the Fed is the biggest threat. Yeah. I mean, there's a million threads. You could pull any of them that you want to. My point is that he's just consuming all the oxygen, and that by tomorrow morning there will be another outrage that they can talk about.
I just think it's bad timing for Republicans to suddenly be insulting.
Well, we'll see.
American
I mean, it might be bad for him in House suburban districts. Yeah. It is not necessarily bad for him to be on the news all the time if you're a red state Republican trying to unseat a Democrat.
Greg, what do you think?
I don't think any Democrat can criticize anybody about bad timing after Liz Warren, after the attacks on Brett Kavanaugh. Give me a break. We brought up three things here. You brought up Mika, you brought up Rhodes, you brought up Don Lemon. I want to address all three of them separately. Mika, first of all, the Morning Joe reminds me of a political talk show you see within a TV show, like House of Cards. It's entirely fabricated and phony. It has the same faces doing the same things. It's almost like it's scripted for another show. And Mika is really, God love her, but she's a definition of stupidity, because she's eternally shocked by something that the rest of America is used to and shrugs off. For example, it'd be like going to get Indian food and complaining that it's spicy. It'd be like going to see a Tarantino film and when you leave, go, my God, that was violent. I'm sorry, but that's what it is.
And she knows Trump better than anybody.
She does.
She got friends with him.
That's the irony, is that she helped get him elected.
Yep.
She gave him more oxygen than anybody. Now, there's a professor, Gad Saad, who brought up a really good way to describe this. The difference between the media and the people who voted for Trump. The media obsesses over the peripheral. That means words, manner, and style. The people that voted for Trump can tolerate all of that because they focus on the substance, which is jobs, economy, peace. You're looking at peace in the Koreas, the Supreme Court. You're looking at the world's most competitive economy this year, beat out Singapore. Meanwhile, you have Ben Rhodes.
Take that, Singapore.
Yes, all roads lead to failure. This is a guy who has no right to talk about security. His naive arrogance gave us Trump because they created a foreign policy that sent our leaders around saying we're sorry, and then we have a leader that gets elected that says, no, we're not. So there's a direct linkage between that. Lastly, Lemon has no right to talk about anything, given the fact that he basically snickered throughout the a segment mocking Kanye's mental health and calling him a bunch of disgusting names. And he said that Trump could use a mirror. I'm sure Lemon must have 100 of them at home. You could loan him.
I mean, TV is a pretty aesthetically oriented industry. I don't think anybody on TV can talk about looks like they don't really know.
I can.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
You can tell I have
the
no
most
ego.
handsome man on Fox News. And I'm comfortable in my sexuality, so I can say that.
Yeah, but Greg, I was going to ask you, but don't you think that these comments are adolescent? You say Trump supporters just dismissed them, not a big deal. But I think the fact that he keeps going after American women in terms of their looks, at some point you say, this is the president.
You're wrong. He goes after everyone. He goes after men, women. I'm sure he's gone after children as well. We just haven't caught it. He's gone after animals. I'm telling you, Ted Cruz,
Sweaty, Marco.
Oh, yeah, come
Remember
on.
Romney walks like a penguin?
Yes.
I mean, he does that to everyone.
And he wasn't far off on that.
And what I was saying to Greg, though, is it's about women's looks or
he's not a sexist.
Functions.
He will make fun of everything. He's not. He doesn't see
I'm just
gender.
telling you. I think women are very uptight about their looks. And if I say to
that's a sexist comment.
Oh, that's a sexist comment. I think
you know what? I'm uptight about my looks too.
Dana, did you know that women are uptight about their looks?
Oh,
How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Thanks for mansplaining to
And
us.
they're fine.
That is mansplaining. Are you uptight about your looks, Morgan? No, that's the assumption.
I think everybody who's on television I saw you staring in the mirror before.
Yes, but you know what? How can I not stare at this?
That's like you don't invoke the 25th Amendment because the president said something you don't like. Like the 25th Amendment was meant when someone is incapacitated, not because you think the president's a jerk.
All right, we're all going to go take a break and stare in the mirror.
Yes.
But up next, new signs of desperation from Democrats.
It's why the president called him Lying Ted, and it's why the nickname stuck, because it's true.
Ooh, Lying Ted. They're now mimicking Trump to try to score big in the midterms.
Fire on the mountain. Fire. Yeah, we gonna fire. And we gonna
With the midterms less than 3 weeks away, Democrats are adopting tactics they claim to despise by stealing a page from President Trump's playbook. In Texas, Beto O'Rourke is trailing Ted Cruz in the polls, so last night he decided to copy Trump's winning campaign formula.
Senator Cruz is not going to be honest with you. He's going to make up positions and votes that I've never held or have ever taken. He's dishonest. It's why the president called him Lying Ted, and it's why the nickname stuck, because it's true.
It's clear Congressman O'Rourke's pollsters have told him to come out on the attack. So if he wants to insult me and call me a liar, that's fine. But, John Adams famously said, facts are stubborn things.
All right, Dana, so that was a nasty debate last night, but being someone who used to work on campaigns, everyone's talking about, I used to work on campaigns, so everyone's talking about Beto's raised $40 million in the last quarter. What was interesting to me is I looked today, and he actually has spent an unprecedented amount. So he spent $29 million to raise, so he's spending about $3 to raise $4. So we know he's behind in the polls. When I'm looking at the numbers, it looks like he's blowing through his money. It's an impressive amount raised, but an impressive amount spent. Is this just a lot of pomp and circumstance for this guy to run as president or vice president?
Well, you know, it could be a really good down payment on a 2020 run, right? You spend $38 million in a state where you come short in the end, but your name ID is way up high. You've got an excited base around you. So he might say at the end, the last laugh might be on all of us, because if he ends up figuring out a way to turn this into a national race. I do think that he's going negative on Ted Cruz very late. He has not been negative all along in this campaign. He had a very positive campaign, and then he decides late that he has to go negative. He's not running a lot of negative ads against Ted Cruz, and so I think that those polls are probably correct. Now, the Democrats have registered a lot of new voters in Texas, so it'll probably be closer than people think, and that might give the Democrats some hope that they could turn Texas
more
blue
like
in the future.
Effort.
The other thing I would say is we are quickly moving from the persuasion phase of this campaign. People are locked in. Their opinions are there. These debates are coming a little bit late in the cycle. We are now moving to the get out the vote phase. So all of this extra money that they have to spend on trying to get voters to the polls.
So, but Juan, I think what's interesting about Beto's campaign is that he's running a race that you would not expect a Democrat to run in Texas. He's taking very liberal positions that have clearly satisfied a national audience, but taking things that, like, I know a lot of Texans, I got family in Texas who are watching the 5 right now, and they are not happy about anyone saying that they want to demolish ICE.
No, but I think what you got to remember here is, one, who thought this would be close, Morgan, right? It's Texas.
So
right?
we're giving up already?
No, I don't think it's giving up, but it's a situation where Republicans have had to send in not only additional money, but the president, you know, and suddenly all of the Republican Senate campaign committee has been sending more people down to support Ted Cruz. And in last night's debate, while you point to the fact that he called him Lying Ted, I'm with Dana on this. I think that he has really withheld a lot of the negativity, the harsh attacks in this campaign. He's run a very, I think quite
President called Sean Hannity
diligent campaign. But last night, when it came to something so big, I think, for Republicans, which is the tax cuts, boy, Cruz couldn't say a word. All Cruz could say is, well, I know we've blown up the deficit, and I said way back that the deficit is terrible, but now I think it's not because of the tax cuts. I think that they don't properly measure. He was lost, and I was surprised. I thought he would have a stronger position on something that has been so important that the Republicans thought would be something they could run on this campaign. The question is, what is Cruz running on, except that he is a Republican at this point in Texas?
Well, but Jesse, serious question for you. A lot of people think that Beto's quite good looking. So is it Beto or Greg?
No, Beto is I think, the Greg Gutfeld of the Democratic Party. He's a little taller, but he definitely wears clothes as well as Greg does, and the kids like him.
They do.
They really do. Can you skateboard?
Yeah, you should be able to. That's a
hard no.
I'm a better driver.
Okay, so I think what he's doing is he's sucking up all the donations, and he's going to lose. So cross him off the list. I just don't think the Democrats thought they would be in this position 3 weeks out right now. Think about the news cycle. I totally agree with what Dana said in the last segment. Donald Trump is consuming so much media airtime, and it's traditionally it had been kind of chaotic and a lot of gaffes and a lot of scrambling around, but it's all positive stuff. If you look at, he's racking up wins on NAFTA, on Kavanaugh, on Kanye, on the economy. I thought that was positive for the Republicans, and in the way Dana said, it makes the Democrats self-destruct. When the media is apoplectic on something he does, they're going bonkers, and they're not on the attack the way they should be responsibly. They just can't keep the message up. Also, the non-political news hasn't been favorable to the Democrats. The hurricane, this Washington Post thing, they haven't really found any way to like kind of grab onto something. Yeah. And the real clear average, it is, because they've, look at Feinstein, look at Warren, look at Spartacus. They've blown themselves up. And right now, the congressional generic ballot, Democrats are only up 6. That's not enough to take the House. And Trump's poll numbers, he just went up 6 in the Gallup poll. He's at 45 in the Economist poll and 49 at Rasmussen. Those aren't the kind of numbers that are going to drag Republicans down nationally in the House races.
Well, I think the president's ubiquitousness on television, that's a big word for the five.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Is that?
nice knowing you, Morgan.
But the Warren thing is showing that he is getting into their head, right? As you both pointed out, being everywhere. So anyway, coming up.
Yeah. So I don't have an opinion today.
I think I gotta go.
With you, Morgan.
I know it's because I
already have a nickname. It's Beto Mail.
Ooh,
that's
very good.
one.
Look, I want to talk about the name calling because we keep saying what a bad thing it is. The fact is, Donald Trump gets credit for bringing the indoor furniture outside. We always hate it when your neighbors put a sofa out in the front porch because it's ugly, but it's really comfortable. And what Trump is doing, he has taken the dirty work of political campaigning and brought it outside with the name calling. He doesn't hire operatives to find out if your spouse is a drunk or, you know, if you were using too many prescription pills. He just calls you names. So I think that's progress, calling people names, and that's why Lying Ted. He tried Lying Ted, but he failed because he's not Trump.
Well, yeah, remember where he said that Ted's dad was involved in the Kennedy? He just makes stuff. He didn't have to do negative research.
Wait, we don't know if that's false. We don't know if that's false.
Is that right? I'm going to put that on you. You remember Greg said that, not me.
I definitely, Greg, you're better than Beto.
Oh, thank you.
You win it today. All right, coming up, Amazon breaks out of the liberal Silicon Valley mindset to school Google on patriotism.
The immigration showdown is heating up as a new caravan of thousands of migrants make their way from Honduras to the U.S. This despite President Trump's threats to cut off foreign aid to Central American countries if they let illegal immigrants cross the U.S. border. Nancy Pelosi is joining in on the debate with her take on why the president's pushing for this border wall.
We have to do something other than building a wall. It's immoral, expensive, ineffective, and not something that people do between countries. But in any event, it happens to be like a manhood issue for the president. And I'm not interested in that.
So Morgan, she went on to say that's not the best way to protect the border, but the whole manhood issue caught everyone's ears. Like, what is she talking about?
I don't want to go there because I don't want to be on the front page of media. Listen, I think when you look at the past 20 years, you're probably not agreeing with me on this, but I think every attempt that has been there to secure the border has been something that the Democrats like Hillary Clinton, Obama, Schumer voted for it in 2006, but they're actually, the fringe elements of the party are against it. And I think what we've seen now is the fringe elements of the Democrat Party, it's now become mainstream policy as it relates to immigration. And this is where I think it will be interesting to see if any deal does get done on the border wall. Lindsey Graham said on Fox and Friends a couple of days ago that he thinks there should just be a straight DACA deal for wall funding. So potentially you might see that after the midterms. But in terms of getting anything done, I think this is going to continue to be a wedge issue for both parties.
And we have Vice President Pence, Jesse, calling down to Honduras and saying we're going to pull all kinds of foreign aid if you don't stop people from making this trip. But then the contrary argument is, hey, wait a second, if we pull our money, that will increase crime in Honduras, which is bad, not help with education, not help with jobs, and that might lead more people to come.
It's just a threat. I like how he made Pence do it, too. Just have Pence do it, and if it really gets bad, I'll make the call. Listen, if you have Pelosi talking about manhood, and a caravan of migrants coming up towards our southern border at the same time, this is like a gift-wrapped ad for the RNC for the midterms. It doesn't get any better than this one, and Pelosi doesn't know what she's talking about on border security. The last time she talked about securing the border, she said, oh, we should just mow the grass instead of having a wall. And Morgan's right. Remember Obama and Feinstein and Hillary? They all voted for 700 miles of border fence in 2006. Yeah. And it's not about manhood, it's about mankind. A secure border protects families from being separated. It protects against cartels trafficking guns, drugs, and humans across the southern border. And it allows for an orderly immigration process where people can apply at the points of entry. And it forces these Central American countries, including Mexico, to deal with their societies themselves, so all these poor people don't just rush north. They can figure out a way to create a better economy down there.
What do you say, Dan?
I think that Latin and South America are the two places where the United States foreign policy needs to put a lot more focus on, partly because if you don't want to have to deal with the problem here, you should try to help solve it there. But I do think that the threat to take away money would get those leaders to say, we got to get more serious about this. And also now you have the Mexican government saying it will stop the caravan. And I read some of the stories today about some of the caravan people that have joined up. I don't doubt that they have a very desperate situation at home. But the fact that they are being whipped up into a frenzy by leftists who are trying to get them here and to try to make a political point, because I bet they're making some money on the side, it's disgusting what they're doing to those people. Getting into a caravan is a really dangerous thing. Several of the children have had to go to the hospital when they get to a checkpoint because they are dehydrated, they're exhausted. It is better to try to help them there than to try to deal with this caravan, but I agree, it is an in-kind contribution to the Republicans to have this happening 2 weeks before an election.
And Greg, what about the idea that the president had stronger policies on immigration, and said this would deter people from coming in?
Right.
But we've seen over the last year now a spike.
Yeah, it's cruelly manufactured for politics.
Right.
Look, let's start first with Pelosi, then I'll get to the caravan. When she mentions the word manhood about the wall, how sexist is that? She is implying that women do not understand security, don't understand safety. Perhaps what Pelosi would prefer is to refer to the wall instead as a belt. A belt, and instead of immigration detention centers, that could be a migrant purse. It could be all about accessorizing, Nancy, because apparently that's all women understand are belts and purses, but not safety and security. You are a sexist. It's disgusting. As for the caravan, I've been watching the media describe this, and they keep saying the caravan is on its way to America. It's heading to our border. They conveniently leave out something in between called Mexico, right? Okay? The fact is, if you are desperately running from a killer, you don't run by one escape hatch to one that's further away. If you are truly desperate, you stop in the nearest safety zone. So we realize that this is cruelly manufactured for politics and policy.
But and can I say, going on your point, you know, Mexico has a terrible record on human rights, and that's one of the reasons Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, all of these countries, I think the United States, in addition to threatening to cut off funding, can also say you can't treat these people inhumanely. You have to take care of them at your border and not have human rights violations.
Exactly.
All right, stay right there. Wildcard Wednesday, lots of fun on the 5. That's up next.
It's time now for Wildcard Wednesday. All right, slot machine. Okay, let's see. Here we go. First one. Ecuador orders Julian Assange to babysit cat and clean the bathroom.
Is that real?
Whose is this?
Not me.
Oh, this is yours? Yeah, okay. So Ecuador is telling, I've heard this, that Julian Assange is kind of a slob. So they're telling that if he's going to have his internet access restored, he has to...
Which one's the cat?
He has to they ordered him to clean his bathroom and take better care of his cat. And Assange was told to take charge of the well-being, food, hygiene, and proper care of his cat, or else it would be given to an animal shelter.
This is code. It's about Assange's habits and hygiene, not the cat.
Is that his actual cat?
Are they worried about the cat that is not going to survive?
Assange uses the box.
No, this is like what you do to a teenager. It's like, I'm going to cut your internet off if you don't clean your room.
But you know, there's nothing, I have dogs, I'm a dog person, but I love all animals, but there's nothing worse than a cat that's not, someone who doesn't take care of the cat. Like, the smell is disgusting.
How big is this place?
He's gross.
It's a small place.
Besides being a traitor, he's gross.
That's like the worst one. Juan, you got anything on Assange and the cat?
No, I'm a little amazed that they still have him there, but because they've had threatened to throw him out several times.
That's true. They have. Okay, next one. Mega Millions jackpot grows to $900 million. No winning tickets sold yesterday. So now tickets cost $2 each, and the next drawing will be held on Friday. Anybody here buy a ticket?
Yeah, so I have a ticket here, and the producer of the show bought me the ticket for $2, and now she thinks she's entitled to my winnings. All of it? Are you sure about that? So how much, if I win, how much is the jackpot? If I win $900 million, how much do you think I should give the producer who paid $2 out of her own pocket to buy me the ticket? What's the appropriate
percent?
amount?
50%.
50.
Yeah.
50? Hell, no way. All she did was walk downstairs.
You didn't.
I'll give her a couple.
You didn't buy the ticket.
All right, Juan, you're never going to see me again after I win.
Oh, wait a
What you
minute.
said.
We
Wait
hope.
a minute. You would give up all your fame and fortune?
What fame and fortune? I have new fortune. I don't need fame.
Here's another one. Keira Knightley reveals that Disney movies her daughter is banned from seeing. The English actress told Ellen DeGeneres she doesn't want her daughter watching Cinderella and the Little Mermaid because in Cinderella she waits around for a rich guy to rescue her, and in The Little Mermaid giving up her voice for a man.
I have a big problem with this.
Okay.
I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid as a kid. I dressed up as The Little Mermaid for Halloween. I begged my mother, Mom, you're watching. You did not do my room in The Little Mermaid. And I really wanted it to this day. And it's crazy. I grew up to be a Navy officer. You could still like The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, I
You know
think
what your point is, though? You know what your point is? Keira Knightley is punishing her child so she looks morally superior. Those movies would make her child very happy, but she's saying, no, I want to tell everybody how morally superior I am by banning these. By the way, if I had kids, I would not let them see Love Actually. Her movie is filthy, disgusting tripe.
I love Love Actually.
It's the worst movie ever made. Everybody knows that. Love Actually, it's poop actually.
But actually, that was my story,
Yeah.
and my thought was that actually, I remember my wife wouldn't let the kids watch Married with Children, for example. She didn't like that, right?
Yeah.
But there were lots of fables about girls being rescued or girls having to do whatever it takes.
In all cultures.
And I think that it's an important change to say, hey, you know what? It's not.
But I watched them. She watched them.
And it's across all cultures. These stories live in all cultures. Why is that? Maybe because they like it.
We did watch them, Dana, and apparently we're obsessed with their looks, what we learned earlier in the show.
No, we found out that the guys are more obsessed with their looks. Do we have time for one more? Okay, Piers Morgan mocked Daniel Craig for the way he carries his child, and dads are clapping back. Is this yours?
Yeah. So what happened was he was making fun of Daniel Craig because he was holding the baby in one of those papoose things.
Yeah.
And so, do we have the video of what happened on the show? This is what happens. Roll it.
This pie is for all those men that wear papooses.
Oh!
That's for the guys that wear papooses.
All right.
It looks a little unplanned to me.
You have 3 pies. Everybody knew there was going to be a pie fight, right?
Wow.
That's awkward.
I think it was planned. It was planned.
I don't know. I think we might have pies in the next segment. One more thing is up next.
Oh, look at you.
Kidding.
Time now for one more thing. Happy National Pasta Day, America. And you know what? I just have a new founding father favorite. Thomas Jefferson. You know what he did? He introduced pasta to America. Also, fun fact about pasta, it was invented in China. Who knew? I sound like Juan. Who knew? So here's some pasta. I think the whole table has some. Put some parm on there. You want some parm, Morgan?
Yes.
There we go. Juan?
I'm good, thank you.
You want some or no, Juan?
No.
Okay.
Can I have some cracked
You're not a real pasta lover. All right. Who's next?
That's all you got?
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Do you want more?
No, that's it. That's it. Okay.
I have more pasta facts.
I
You want me to rattle some pasta facts up?
No, but I'm
600 different shapes of pasta.
Okay.
Hey, I got something to plug. Speed it up.
Okay, I have one thing to plug and one thing to show you. I'll tell you what podcast it's posted, so it's all about the midterms. You're going to want to hear that because we got some stuff for you there. Also, there's one more thing today. Meet Bean the dog. The dog's name is Bean. So like the rest of us, Bean cannot stand that his dad is on the phone. So he has taken matters into his own hands. And I'm not sure if that's a Bishla. It may be. I don't know if Bean is Bishla, but very cute. And I think that the dogs are getting smarter. They know how to get us off our phones.
Yeah, maybe the dog read the book by Jedediah.
Oh, that's right. Do not disturb.
All right, Juan.
So I've been to some concerts lately, one for Paul Simon, one for Elton John, both farewell tours, and now comes news that the man behind Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, he's saying farewell to. You know those characters, but you may not know the puppeteer and voice behind them belongs to Carol Spinney. Take a look at this video of Mr. Spinney bringing Big Bird to life. Spinney has been behind Big Bird and Oscar since 1969, so that's almost 50 years, folks. And he was one of the original puppeteers on Sesame Street. He's been on most of the 4,400 episodes. Spinney stopped doing puppeteering in 2015, limiting himself to the voice of Big Bird and Oscar. So, you know, I was thinking about this and I concluded Carol Spinney is not as well known as Mr. Rogers, but for several generations of American children, he has Rogers' impact, teaching young people how to listen to each other with a big heart. So have a great retirement, Mr. Spinney.
All right, scintillating. All right.
Thank you. So it's holiday time. Many of you will be coming to New York City. I encourage you to go see The Lion King. It's been on Broadway for 20 years. And I was able to go see the newest Nala just a couple weeks ago. Her name is Suri Marrero. She's 8 years old. She's from New Jersey. She's a very big fan of Fox News, as are her parents. And there she is right there. She's so cute. She's so talented. Go see Suri Marrero in The Lion King when you're here.
Keira Knightley would let her daughter watch that.
Oh, no.
Jeez, you won't let this go.
All right, Greg.
All right, my podcast is up. You go to foxnewspodcast.com. It's with Professor Peter Boghossian. He's one of the main guys behind the hoax. Just look it up. It's a great story, a hoax on these academic journals. Also, remember to go check out ggutfeld.com and find my dates for my book events in Texas and in Michigan. They're coming up in December, and the tickets are selling out. If you don't do it, you're dead to me. Well, not really. I'll just be very sad, and I'll sulk for a long time.
And that will be bad for us.
Yes.
Beto Gutfeld. That's
Beto Gutfeld. Beto Mail.
That's right. How much are the tickets? Are they good? Are they expensive? Can I afford them?
They're moderately priced.
Moderately
you can afford them.
priced.
I'll get you a discount.
You get me in?
If you get the winning ticket.
All right. That's true. All right. Set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The Five. Special report up next. Brett, take it away.
Thank you.